Folks, it's really good to be here today. I get a number of these kind of assignments and I quite enjoy them. I'm probably going to break some of the rules. We're probably going to go 2 hours, so that makes lunch a little late. I hope too many of you won't get too hungry by doing that. We'll have a break about in the middle, someplace along in there. And so you can run to the restroom or whatever else, or just stretch your legs so you can stay awake. Anyway, title's kind of presumptive, isn't it? Low input livestock management. Is it possible? Is it regenerative? Is it profitable? The answer is yes, if you know how. And I'm going to probably talk about ranchers because that's the term we use in the West, but a livestock farmer, I'm okay with that term too. I grew up in the West. Most of my work has been in the West. I've done a little bit of work in the East, and I've got as far east as Missouri a good number of times. Further east than that, except for a little bit of time spent in Florida, I've not been here a little bit. And so I don't presume to know your context, where you are, and exactly what you do. But I presume that a lot of you are probably can I say it this way, part-time farmers, and you have your day jobs or your other businesses or occupations from which you make a good portion of your livelihood, with maybe a few of you being only livestock farmers. At any rate, when I say yes, if you know how, I need to structure a little context, probably. Of the cow-calf ranchers in the United States, most of them are teetering at the edge of profitability, teetering at the edge of going broke, even with today's high prices. And I keep wondering what's going to happen when these prices tumble, because they are going to. And then what do they do, especially if they're full-time at it? How do they deal with that? And my suggestion is right now, while the prices are high, start doing something to make your ranch profitable during hard times. I was lucky that I had a few mentors early in my career that kind of step by step, not one at a time, but step by step, taught me how to make ranches profitable. And then I worked for an organization for most of my career that insisted on profitability. We knew we wouldn't have our jobs for a long time if the operations we managed were not profitable. And so it became important that I learn what makes ranch profitable. And, you know, back in the early 1950s, and believe it or not, I was a child then, and was beginning to start to work on the ranch quite a little bit. I don't remember learning how to ride a horse, and yes, I do ride a horse, I know how. Sometimes today it's not easy to get on, but once on, I still know what to do, especially if the horse knows what to do. And there are things about that, you know, go back as far as memory goes with me. But after the Second World War, munitions technology moved over into producing nitrogen fertilizer. And a lot of our mechanical abilities to build war machines moved over into producing farm implements. When I was a boy, you could buy a small farm tractor, ranch hayfield tractor, for about $2,500. You could buy fuel for 15 to 25 cents a gallon. And the labor force came from your household. Oh, there we go. Came from your household. Families were bigger then. And like I started to work in the hayfield, driving the team of horses, pulling a dump rake. Some of you probably don't even know what a dump rake is. You're too young for that. But a dump rake in the hayfield, driving a team of horses just out of the second grade. And that's kind of the way things happen. So we could make hay fairly inexpensively and feed cattle in the wintertime fairly inexpensively because of where labor came from and because of the price of the equipment. Well, let me talk about that equipment and fossil, and fuel and the derivatives of fuel. Refer to that as fossil fuel and iron, if I might. Back then, the price of fossil fuel and iron was low, and our commodities sold reasonably well. In the ensuing years, the price of fossil fuel and iron and anything derived from either one of those has gone up faster than the consumer price index. The price of what we produce, the products we produce in farming and ranching, has gone up slower than the consumer price index through that whole 70-year plus period of time. That's not sustainable. But we've developed a mindset. Now, there's been a terrific culling in our business for intellect. Those who are left farming and ranching are smart people. I don't mean to be offensive, but smart and dumb at the same time. They have good intellect, excellent intellect, but they don't know how to ranch profitably or farm profitably. I know they're smart because I hired a lot of them. And without any, maybe a lot of them didn't have degrees from college at all, but their kids ended up being excellent high school students, went on to college. Several of them are PhDs today. They got excellent grades. They were bright, very bright, and so were their parents. We have not intentionally made our operations poor. We've done that very unintentionally. I mean, we would hope to leave it better than we found it, leave it better for the next generation. But as my friend Kit Farrow often says, why would the second generation or the next generation, the ones succeeding you, why would they want to come back to a farm or a ranch if it isn't both fun and profitable? And it needs to be both, or the next generation is not going to want to come to it. And you're going to get tired of it. And so what do you do with it? So that's the reason I'm pretty insistent on profitability. Now, for those of you who are part-timers at it, I would like to suggest that you take this approach. Yes, you can't derive your entire living from what you're doing with the farm or ranch because it's not big enough. But you should expect it to make a monetary contribution to the household income. In other words, you shouldn't use household income to subsidize that farm or ranch. I argue with Jim McGrann, who's an ag economist at Texas A&M. He may be retired by now, but he did a lot of work with farmers and ranchers on SPA analysis, if any of you know what SPA is. But he and I used to argue, and he said, there wasn't a ranch in Texas under 100 cows that was making a profit. And I said, oh, I want to disagree with you. I said, I doubt that all of those ranches, some of them might be, but I doubt that all of them are subsidizing their farm or ranch, and in Texas you call it a ranch, subsidizing that ranch with household income. And I further suggested, I said, they look at it different than you and I do. They put their labor on the other side of the ledger. They don't call it an expense. For them, that's entertainment and recreation. That's why they're doing it. And so their labor, personal labor contributions, that they don't put it on the expense side of the ledger. And I said, as an economist, you can call that erroneous thinking, but that's the way they're looking at it. And I said, and I don't blame them. I said, their day job is probably pretty dang boring. And this is probably quite a lot of fun for them. And I said, in the next thing, in the pickup they drive to their day job, they use that as a business expense on the ranch. And so they can take a little deduction for the depreciation and the upkeep and the maintenance and the fuel and whatnot in the pickup, because they drive it to the day job and then they drive it directly to the ranch afterward. And I think he kind of agreed with my approach to that, but what it really boils down to is, are you subsidizing it from your day job? And if you are, I hope you quit. I hate to say that, because you make it unfair for the rest of us, right? you're producing something at a greater cost of production than you're getting back, and you're putting more commodity on the market, making it tougher for the people that are in it for their whole livelihood to compete. So I want you to be profitable. I hope you are profitable, and you can be profitable even in small size. You just need to recognize the terms and the size of what you're doing. But anyway, we went all these years, with our costs going up faster than the value of our product. And so what happens is we must change our mindset. We all get caught in paradigm lockdown in a big, big way. I recall doing some consulting work with a fairly large ranch, and one of their operations managers came into the office one of the mornings that I was there, and I'd been there a day or two, and maybe he's on the third day there, and he came in and he said, he worked with us for some time, and he said, I've known you for quite a while, and he said, I used to go home the evening after I'd visited with you and tell my wife how much out of the box you are. He said, last night I went home and I had to tell her he's not just a little bit out of the box, he is way out of the box. And I said, my biggest worry is I'm just building myself a new box. And we've got to be careful about that. We get our paradigms and then we lock down on them, and that's the way, right? That's the way to do things. And that's where a lot of us are caught. We're still caught in a 1950s, a 1960s paradigm. And so we want to be good, and we're smart and dumb at the same time, but we're smart. And so we think, well, okay, we'll just do what we've been doing all these years a little bit better. And you can maybe do that. Maybe just do it a little bit better, but that's not going to solve your problem. We've got to begin to do different things. Instead of building systems that have a high dependency on fossil fuel and iron, we have to develop systems that are more highly dependent on soil, sunshine, rainfall, and our ingenuity. And hopefully I'll bring some of the ingenuity into play today. And we'll talk about some of those things. In our business, we need to have some goals. And the goals that I like to have, and I got to turn this so I don't have to look back at the screen, I can see what I'm talking about from here. We want to have goals, and I think we need goals around finances, around our land, what we want it to be like, and I hope you're all in the concept of regenerative management, and we want to regenerate the land, make it better. Gabe Brown, he quips quite often about the terms of sustainability. He said, why would anybody want to sustain a degraded resource? He said, we need to regenerate them, because he said all of America is degraded. And he's right. Soil loss in the state of Iowa, which is one of the prime agricultural states, is over half of the soil has been lost since white America started farming. And a lot of us in the Gulf of Mexico and other places, when it's blew away with the Indian Ocean on somebody else's farm. But that's the reason for Gabe's comment. Why would we want to sustain a degraded resource? We need to get about regenerating. So we need land and soil health goals, objectives for what we do. And then we need quality of life goals. If it's not fun, if it's not enjoyable, we're not going to last very long, and certainly the next generation is not going to want it. They're not going to want us to do it. I find people who are good and regenerative at either grazing extremely well, and then they take their kids out, and the kids get excited about, oh, here's a plant I've never seen before. Here's an insect I've never seen before. This bird, has it been around very long? I mean, they start seeing these things happening at a young age, and they get excited about it and what can happen. And then as they start to understand the interconnectedness of all these pieces, they get even more excited. Okay, so we're going to talk about 4 areas to manage, 3 ways to improve profit, and 5 essentials. We've been up into all the 5 essentials except just gloss over the top of them. 4 areas to manage. Like it or not, we've got to manage production. We like that. That's why most of us in agriculture, because we like production, right? We like to produce animals, we like to produce crops or whatever, we love the production part of it. The other things on our list, maybe not so much. But we need to do them, like it or not. We need to work with economics and finance. There's a subtle difference between economics and finance. Economics means, will this be profitable? Finance tells you to have enough cash to do it in the first place. But if you gotta have the cash, and if you can do it, then it would be profitable. But we need first, can it be profitable? Will it be profitable? But what will be our cash flow to enable that profitability to happen? Marketing. I used to think I was a pretty good livestock marketer. And I even taught marketing classes at 2 universities, believe it or not. And I thought I was a pretty good marketer. And I knew quite a bit about marketing. There were a whole lot of things about marketing that I didn't know. And I started seeing other people using some other ideas, and we'll get to some of those today. And from that, maybe you can develop some ideas of your own. But ways to market and add dollars to the bottom line quickly. And then people. I've had people tell me, gee, it's just me and my spouse and the kids. Why do I need to worry about people management? And I said, well, there's quite a few reasons. First of all, most of us are darn poor bosses. So we probably ought to learn a little bit about how to build relationships with people. And not just the people working with us on our operations, but the people with whom we do business. And who, who we interact with on a business basis. The people from whom we buy our inputs, or our equipment, our banker, our tax preparer, the people that buy our products. We develop relationships. Those are people-based relationships. And maybe we don't manage the people, but we manage the relationships, even with our own family. Where children help us, our spouses help us, we work together, we need to manage those relationships. And I might suggest to those of you who have only family involved in your operations, that I've managed both family operations and operations where not a single person is related to me. And I can tell you which is the more difficult to manage. It's the most where you deal with family, and the reason is because you've got a family relationship and you have a business relationship, and those two relationships are somewhat different. And you want to have a nice family relationship, a loving family relationship. And then within the business relationship, sometimes the oldest son wasn't cut out to be a manager at all. And you have to go down there to the third child. And I can go a big family, I'm the oldest of 10, I am the oldest. I happen to be one of those other things, good. But anyway, my dad went down to about number 5, picked the one that he really wanted to come back to the ranch, and that one wouldn't come. Well, I didn't believe it because my brothers were all younger. My parents hired us. So we would pay our own way to college out of what they paid us for working on the ranch. And I'm glad they did that because it taught me about money management from a very young age. I had to buy my own fun and my own clothes and quite a number of things. At the time, I thought that was kind of an imposition, but I'm sure that that way because I learned something about money and how to manage it from a very young age. But at any rate, managing those people relationships, especially in family type operations, becomes somewhat difficult oftentimes. And we need to just learn how to do that. So those are 4 areas we need to be able to manage. We need to have a shared vision. And we all need to buy into the vision. We don't need to agree 100%, but everybody on the team, on a working team, needs to buy into the vision. Things about soil health and grazing management. You know, the exact paddock size and the timing of the moves, all of this is based on daily observation. And no two of you would probably do it exactly alike. And that's okay. But you do need to agree on the basic concepts of the strategy for grazing and soil health. Same thing with livestock breeding. If you're breeding livestock and you want them to be adapted to where you're operating and how you're operating, you need to have some agreement across your team on what those breeding objectives are going to be and how you go about accomplishing them. And we can talk more about that later, but if you have interest. Marketing, we should have basic agreement. It doesn't need to be 100% agreement, but we all need to buy in. Okay, what's our approach to marketing? How are we going to go about it? And who is the lead on that? Who takes the lead? And how much do each of us need to bend to fit that lead? We don't want to have to bend too much. We want to be closely enough aligned that we can all buy into the marketing approach. And I can read the last one that I've got there. Well, people development. How are we going to develop people? Ourselves included. If I'm trying to have people on my team become better, when I do things with people development, I have to be doing things to make myself become better at the same time. If I don't, it doesn't work very well. Okay, 3 ways to improve profit. This comes from the Ranch for Profit. I use terminology a little different, but not a lot different. First of all, they say increase turnover. And they allow, okay, leasing another piece of property, buying another piece of property, that allows you to increase turnover. And in a sense, it does. You're going to have more things to sell. But I like to say, how do I increase turnover without buying or leasing any more property? How do I get turnover to increase internally with what I have right now? Now, I have no, matter of fact, I'm in favor of expanding. If you can expand with either lease or purchase property. If you want to be serious about it and want to become full-time sometime, that's, you probably need to do that. And I'm in favor of that, but I still like to know, okay, what if my property size stays just the same? How do I increase turnover? That's how do I have more units to sell, more things to sell, or more animals to sell. And then we decrease overheads. And I've done quite a little bit of consulting work, and what I have found that the ranchers or farmers who increase overheads, who recognize they have a problem there, and most of us do, is diminish overheads to the extent possible. Those are the ones that make progress on profitability very fast. I had a young man who worked for me for quite a few years. He's not so young anymore. He's about ready to graduate from high school. But he was young when he started with me years ago. And he finally left our company's employ, and he had a job with a group that invested in a ranch in Wyoming. They were from Texas themselves, but they invested in a ranch in Wyoming. And it was just kind of the fun of their recreation. And he took this ranch over to manage it, and they were losing. Well, I better not tell you how much it was. Several $100,000 a year. And he took it over, and within 3 years' time, he reversed that. They were making that many $100,000 a year. And I got asked him, okay, how'd you do that? And he grinned at me and he said, you know how I did it. And I said, overheads? He said, yeah, listen, you talk for too long. And he said, I got it put together. And I said, you know, in this country, on this ranch, we're feeding a lot of hay every winter. And it's a habit. We don't need to feed that much hay. This country stays open. We can raise, we've got the staging way down. So what pieces of equipment do we need to get rid of? Still hay a little. And maybe do some swath grazing, so maybe we'll leave the swath, but what can we eliminate and still function well? And so people start thinking of things. You know, gosh, we got more pickups than we need, we got more stock trailers than we need, we've got more hay equipment, and so they started paring it down. And he said, you know, there were some people there that were, boy, they were gung ho, they were just, okay, here's what we can get rid of, we can still function, still do a good job. And he said there were other people on the team that said, oh no, we can't get rid of that, can't get rid of that, can't get rid of that. And he said, you know, finally we started making some changes. He said about half of the crew quit. He said, you know, I was lucky, the right ones quit. And he said, and we didn't have to replace one of them. So what are overheads? Overheads are land and the things attached to land, and people along with their tools and equipment. So these people left, they're all, a bunch of overhead left. Plus the tools and equipment they needed to do their jobs. And so we had a bunch of overhead that just disappeared. He said, yeah, then we went on to fine tune. He said, we found sometimes we could trade 3 pieces and replace it with 2 that would fit the whole role of the new job better than it had in the past. And he said, so that went on, beyond the initial changes. He said, and then we started to work on gross margin, but I met his owners, the owners of the ranch one day. And they said, this guy's been amazing. We just thought we had no choice. We were going to have our hobby in Wyoming. We just had to keep subsidizing. And that was that was the price of our fun. We go up there and have fun. He said, it sure is nice when you can pay all the bills and still send us a check every year. And, so they learned a very valuable lesson, those owners had. But this young man, he just kind of took a full blind horse, if you will, and turned it from a losing operation to a profitable operation. Because he had learned and was continuing to learn how to make it more profitable. Oh, and then you gross margin, and gross margin is total returns, cash returns, plus or minus inventory change, minus the direct costs. And the direct costs are those costs, if you're in animal agriculture, that increase or decrease anytime you change the number of animals you have. You have a certain amount of vaccinations, you got another animal, you got to buy 1 more. You got another 20 animals, you got to buy 20 more. If you're feeding them a certain amount of supplement per head, you're buying that supplement, you get more animals, you got to buy more. And then a few marketing costs. The rest of the costs are overhead. Well-managed ranches they have a pretty good size of gross margin because they don't have any direct costs. They have a few, and they're important. They don't have it. Now, overheads, we all have to have overheads. But, okay, your gross margin, that has to pay for your overheads and allow for profit. So the gross margin is what you use to pay your overheads, and then the remainder is profit.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you're going through your year and your number of animals is changing, you're selling some off, some of them, whatever. How do you calculate, or how do you recommend you calculate that cost? Do we break it down by, overall cost into per day per animal? Because if I have a calf born on July 1st, I didn't have that in the earlier part of the calendar year. So how do you figure out to calculate your overall expenses or profit per animal when the overall numbers change?
I'll be honest with you, I don't worry too much about profit per animal. I don't worry about profit.
So just, okay.
And I just put those costs together and I probably divide it by the number of animals at the end of the year instead of what I make on a per animal equivalent basis. But beyond that, I'm just more concerned about focusing on the profit itself. Direct costs, I know how much I'm going to feed each animal and how many immunizations I'm going to give, so I can get that cost per animal down because I need it when I plant it forward. But in terms of the overheads are either or, you've got to be developed. And so unless you have per animal, you can divide that if you want to calculate, but I don't try to track it on that basis.
Okay.
The overheads is more, do I need to drive over? And we got to be pretty brutal with ourselves because we get attached to our equipment. The final decision for getting rid of overheads is more emotional than intellectual. Intellectually, we make those decisions fairly easily. Emotionally, we really struggle to get rid of our favorite piece of equipment. Out west, our favorite saddle horse. Oh, favorite cow. Don't name your cows. If they need to be told, Yeah, okay, but it's whole ranch profit that we want to talk about and not profit per cow. Especially not production per cow, but not even profit per cow. Because I may have cows that are making a pretty nice profit per cow. But if I had smaller cows that gave less milk, I could run quite a few more often and make less profit per cow, but still make more money in my total ranch. Let's just look at something right here quickly. To see the numbers. If I can run 1,000 cows that weigh 1,400 pounds, that same piece of property, same feed resource, should feed 1,400 cows that weigh 1,000 pounds, because they basically the proportions of their weight. It's not quite. You can't get quite to the 1,400,000 pound cows, but almost. Okay, because they're eating the proportions of their weight. Well, okay, if you do that, and I'm saying that they're gonna wean a 94% calf crop. So out of 1,000 cows, you get 940 calves, the 94% calf crop wean. That means the 1,400 cows will wean 1,316 calves, you multiply by 94%. Okay, you still with me? And then that gives you the pounds, okay? Well, the 1,000-pound cows, you see, excuse me, 1,400 cows weighing 1,000 pounds. Yeah, 1,000-pound cows, they wean over 100,000 pounds, more pounds of calf. Now, I cheated on this a little bit. I favored those cows because some research was done in Oklahoma, but they grabbed information from as many areas they could with extension services where records were adequate for them to do it. And they determined that those records that for every additional 100 pounds that the cow weighed, she produced someplace between 6 and 16 pounds of additional calf. Well, I took 15, which was right at the high end. 15 pounds of additional calf, and so I got 400 pounds of difference here, times 15 is 60 pounds. So the calf weight individual was 60 pounds different. 60 pounds lighter for the smaller calf. Okay, they will have a smaller calf, but it's not proportionally smaller. And that's just the way it works. And so you have to take that into consideration. Well, then I took the Cadillac prices the same day, or one day, at the day and time when I did this chart. And the bigger calves sell for less per pound. That's the way it always works, right? Calf weight gets higher, and the price per pound goes down. And so those were the prices available on the particular day. And look at the difference in income. Almost $300,000 difference in income. And the thing I didn't put in there is those smaller cows are going to have a higher pregnancy rate. They're going to have a higher conception. They just are. And I didn't, in fact, I assumed they were equal. So that's why we want to think about whole ranch profit or profit per acre and not profit per cow. Acre profit per acre or whole ranch profit and not profit per cow. Okay, 5 essentials. Years ago, I was asked to give a talk, interesting kind of assignment. Asked to give a talk on the 10 things that I thought have been the most important to me over my last few years of ranch management. And I was still fairly young, kind of just getting started, but I had some nice exposures and some really good mentors that helped me learn. And I developed my list of 10 and presented my talk. Actually, it was interesting because while I was preparing my talk, county extension agent and a darn good one called me up and he said, "Hey, you're talking this thing down in Kansas. We made the extension agent down there to set it up for us." He said, "You're talking this thing down in Kansas, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "What topic did they leave you?" And I told him, and he said, "I'm sitting here in my office." He named the lady. She was a worked for Atlantic, and she was a PhD nutritionist, and said, we both have the same topic that you had. He said, does that worry you? And I said, no. I said, and he said, why not? I said, well, I don't mean to be offensive, but I talk about different things that you guys do. And, but you know, quite a number, I don't remember how many speakers were on that, it was a round robin deal. We went in groups of two different groups. And one group followed the other group. So one group would talk in the morning, followed by a group talking in the afternoon, the same group of people. And then you talk, one group would talk in the afternoon, then one would talk in the evening. Again, just followed them. So we went through 4 days in the States, so 8 different groups of people we talked to. Well, I gave this talk, it was pretty well received, and afterward I was asked a number of times to come and give that talk again. People have heard that and wanted me to come and give the talk. Well, while I was doing that, I pulled the thing from 10 down to piece 5. And I tried to give you back exactly the 10, kind of difficult to do, but number 2 was at least 3 of those. And I narrowed it down to these 5, and I really think they are the 5 essentials for successful farm or ranch management. They're not what to do, but they're how you approach doing what you do. The first one, number 1, the approach must be both integrated and holistic, and I got that from Stephen Covey. Most of you have heard about Stephen Covey, right? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I got the concept from him right from his book. And one of these states when he was presenting the book. But at any rate, integration is really bringing things to one whole. But as we do that, we have to be good at the individual part. Okay, we get good at the individual parts, and then we aggregate, we put them together, and then from that aggregation and understanding the whole, we try to make the best holistic decision. I hope I'm making sense when I say that. You know, you need to be good at the grazing, you need to be good at the supplemental nutrition, you need to be good at the animal breeding. You need to be good at the marketing. But then when you put that all together, consider the interconnectedness of all of those parts to the best of your ability, then you try to make the best holistic decision you can. So I think that's the way we approach our management. A lot of us don't take into account the interconnectivity of all the pieces and parts. And okay, when this changes, what happens there? When something changes there, what happens back here? And we just need to look at all that interconnectedness, and we'll never be perfect at it, but the better we can become at it, the better our decision will be. So that's number 1. I'm not going to say a lot more about that. I can give some examples. Maybe I will one quickly. Pesticide use. I don't know whether you get some of this, but anyway, pesticide use. If I never use a pesticide, my neighbors do. When they start using them, they're probably going to get a little kick in performance. But I won't get that kick in performance. 10 years down the road, I wonder how much difference will be between the ways. I know one difference there, and that's they just start the horse race when they start using the pesticide. Who's going to win? Is the chemical company going to develop a better chemical, another chemical, a stronger chemical that will be effective, or are the pests going to develop resistance factors? Which is going to win? And if I've never used them, my animals are going to have to keep developing their own resistance as they best can. And if I cull the ones that don't get pregnant because the pests are bothering them too much or whatever else, or didn't gain weight good, if I get rid of the ones that don't deal with them okay, my cattle are going to develop their own resistance. Now, to the extent that all that happens, and economically, I'm not quite sure where it wins, but I have a pretty good guess. And if you rotate in your grazing, it's amazing how much you move ahead of the pests. You know, pests tend to hatch in manure paths and fresh manure paths. If you move away from those with your grazing, pests have trouble keeping up with it. And so there's just a lot of things, you know, when you become a holistic thinker, you start thinking about all these, and I'm just taking one of many that I could take of those kinds of examples that we need to think about. Okay, number two, continuous improvement of the key resources, land, livestock, and people. Can you imagine a place if the land is improving, the livestock are improving, and the people are improving? Can you imagine that place not becoming more and more profitable? It's just gonna happen. It's just gonna happen. Now, there are years when it will appear that the land isn't improving, rain very much that. And here you might have the case where maybe it rained too much that year. But if the land is getting better, the resilience to either one of those effects, too much rain or too little rain, is much improved. Because if the water goes into the ground rather than running across the face of the ground when it falls, it makes a huge difference. You get soil aggregation going deeper and deeper. If water on excessive rainfall can go into the ground and then move its way underground, either toward the aquifer or toward streams and springs and seeps and so on, it's a lot cleaner water. It hasn't moved soil with it, hasn't taken soil with it. You know, and it's dry and you get your rainfall going into the ground, I would be willing to bet there's 14-inch rainfall areas in the United States. I'm familiar with a lot of those. That half of the rainfall does not go into the ground. It might get in the top quarter of an inch of soil and then start to run off because that quarter inch seals quickly before soil and it starts to run off. And then what didn't run off evaporates quickly because it's held right at the surface of the soil. But when we get water to go into the ground, and like I say, I would bet in most areas when we get 14 inches of rainfall, like half of it is not going into the ground. If you could change that and move that 7 that went into the ground up to 10 or 11, which is recovering half of the leftover, think how much more forage you can produce. You know, and that just awakens everything else. Then the mineral cycle starts to get better. There's more grass, more leaf area, so photosynthesis, sunlight energy capture, energy flow gets better. And then new plants, new insects, new birds start showing up because you created an environment they want. So you just work on ecosystem functions as you begin to do that. Okay, so you get the land improving, even in the bad years. It maybe isn't really improving, but it's certainly not going backward. Your resilience is a lot better. Your livestock are improving, and your people are improving. The people are improving, they're going to take care of the marketing requirements. Okay. Good decision making tools. We don't need a lot of them. You know, when I was a college student, the computer would fill half of this room right here. One computer. And they were not easy to use. Then we started getting these things that they're amazing what they'll do. I hate it, but I have to love some of the things they'll do for me. But there are people who love them. And that thing you carry in your pocket, you know, that rings once in a while, they love those too. You'd be a lot better if you had a love-hate relationship. Because you love them and then you want to use them and use them and use them and use them. We're a bunch of data freaks. And we have a lot of data collected, and we're intent on collecting that data. And we never convert that data to information. We collect a lot of data that we never use to make a better decision going forward. And we need to be really cautious that we collect data that is pertinent and needed. Yes.
Not a question. If anybody in here is ready clear to pick up, you can either turn your lights off or come find me outside something.
Okay. So anyway, be careful on the data you collect. I don't want very much data. I'm going to periodically do some soil tests. As I try to improve my grazing, but it's not going to be every year, and it's not going to be every pasture. But there are about 3 things I'm going to do in every pasture. Now, to me, a pasture is a bigger collection of paddocks, okay? It's maybe where I'm permanent fence, because my paddocks is going to be sized and shaped different every year. And so to track an individual paddock doesn't make a lot of sense because it's not the same paddock next year. But what I call a pasture is a collection of paddocks.
I track on that. So what are my 88s doing? Am I getting more animal days per acre in that pasture over time as we go by? I want to track that number. I want to know, I want to do shovel tests once in a while. What am I seeing for aggregation? What am I seeing for root development? What am I seeing for, if it used to be farmed, what am I seeing for plow panning or that kind of thing? And just, naturally, after body, everything is good as far as you can dig conveniently, shovel, and then you need a backhoe, and I haven't gone to that extreme yet, but I want to do some shovel tests, and out west, they got some bare ground. I don't know what that bare ground is, what's it looking like under that, what's it look like under a good plant community. And if I'm grazing it right, the bare ground should be diminishing, and under the plant community, the soil should look a lot better than it does under the bare ground. And, so if I get good aggregation, I'm getting better infiltration of water. If I got evidence of carbon dating positive, that I should be having better moisture holding capability. So I want those two, and then I want to do water infiltration tests. Just get infiltration rate and 4 inch of water in it. See how long it takes to go in the ground for another inch of water. Now, if you've got some bare ground out west, we can pour that in, we can back tomorrow and still have it. Now we did improving. She didn't go in a few seconds, and 4 seconds in, it takes a few more seconds for a third of it. So we see huge differences between our ground that's still there, versus our ground where it's starting to come alive, the plants are starting to grow, and we've got good plant density and so forth. And so I want those kind of things. Now with my cattle, I really only need about 3 or 4 numbers. I want to know my lean calf crop percentage. And what is that number? How many cows were pregnant going into my calving season? And at the end, or a year later, how many calves did I win back sometime during that year? How many calves did I win? So lean calf crop percentage. Then I want to know my pregnancy rate. Of the cows that I pregnancy checked, how many were pregnant? Simple number. But they're the ones I anticipated would be pregnant. Yeah, because I hope they would be pregnant, but they aren't all. But I want to know that rate. And that tells me a few things. Now, if that pregnancy rate's down in the 70s or low 80s, I'm going to try to do something about it real quick. Now, if that pregnancy rate is 96, do you think I'm going to worry about doing very much about it? No, because it'd be a waste of time. How much more stuff might I feed 100 head of cattle to get 2 more pregnant? Or 1 more pregnant, and is it worth it? Probably not. So, but those numbers can tell me, where do I focus, and do I need to focus, and do I need to worry, or are we okay there? And so I want to have those numbers, and then I want to know death loss by category. Of my mature cows, what percent died that year? 2-year-olds, how many died that year? And how many, and yearlings, how many died? And then I want to know how many, I don't need to know how many calves died, because I've got a weak calf crop percentage, and that takes into account the death losses. And also the embryonic death loss at birth and after birth until weaning time. So, okay, if I have those data, that is nearly enough to make really good decisions going forward. I don't need to capture a lot of other stuff. I'm not going to weigh in the calf. And I know there's a lot of people that encourage you to do that. Well, what decisions would I make if I knew the way to every cow? You know what? On weeding day, I could sort off the 4 calves, set them aside. I do that by eyeball. And hey, they might have scaled a little differently than my eyeball sort, but not very much. And then I'll pull them overnight. Next morning, I'll put those calves back with the cows. As soon as they marry up, I take that pair and pen, and then I mark those cows for second. They're the cows that just aren't up to par. That didn't take very much time. I talked about recreational tagging. I just crazy people tag every cow that's born. And I know the states that are promoting that, whole states right now. The whole country of Canada. Tagging when they're born, and why? And I've got to wonder why. The mother knows who the calf is, I hope, if she doesn't, she ought not be the mother. They need to get rid of it. And when she finds that calf isn't acceptable, it's get rid of mom. You know, I hear the argument there now and again, somebody says, oh, I'm not gonna keep that calf, its mother's gonna get that, so what about mother, you still got the mother? Yeah, you keep her, they are. I said, you're calling the wrong one. Or else you're admitting that you're buying darn poor bulls. Oh, no, we buy good bulls, and then if you're buying good bulls, truly, the calf should be better than mama. And, you know, so we have to kind of keep our thought processes straight when we get into some of these kind of things. Okay, then war on costs. We have no choice but to wage war on costs. So I talked about overheads. Certainly it's either or, we either leave it or we don't. We have to determine that intellectually and not emotionally if we can. That's not an easy bridge to cross. For me, there are just some things we have and we think we need in life. When we get really honest with ourselves, we sort of know. But then on the rest of our costs, war on costs. Why do we have to wage war? You know, people get tired of that, but we fight this battle all of our lives. We have to keep fighting. You know, the boat's not a competition. People don't have to eat meat. Now, they're probably going to die young. And if they're female and don't eat meat, their children are probably not going to be as healthy. And I think there's research to prove both of those, but then in addition to that, it doesn't have to be beef. Now, I can't imagine a life on chicken, but it doesn't have to be beef, or it doesn't have to be mutton, or lamb, or goat. You know, people have a wide array of choices. So what it boils down to is if my neighbor can produce a pound of calf 10 cents a pound cheaper than I can, they could be sustaining business longer than I do. And you know, so what happens, the price must be profitable to us and attractive at the same time to our consumer. Make sense? It's got to be profitable to us and attractive to our consumer. So we're just, we always have to wage war on cost, and that'll never go away. And then put an emphasis on marketing. I mentioned earlier, I thought once upon a time I was a pretty good marketer. And now I throw out my own marketing ideas to people, and it's amazing if they buy those and say, but that doesn't quite fit in my area, but they buy the concepts. It's amazing the new marketing ideas that come up that are just truly good. And so we always want to be looking for ways to be better marketers. And we'll find them if we are. Okay. So for profitable decision making, become a systems thinker or a holistic thinker. Look at those either way you want. I think in business schools, they talk about systems approach, systems thinking. In biological sciences, we tend to talk more about holistic approach. They're not maybe exactly similar, but they're close enough. I'm not going to argue about it. We need to be the systems thinker. We're taking into account as many of the parts as we are capable of doing, and I'm trying to understand the interconnectedness of those parts, because everything is interrelated. So you think, plan, execute, and observe. And then after you do that, you adjust or adapt holistically. But those things are important. Thinking, planning, executing, and observing. Those become really important aspects of our management. Okay, we talked about number one. Let's look a little more closely at number two. I've got a footnote at the bottom. You'd rather have things that appreciate the things that you appreciate. Most of our equipment depreciation idea. Our cows, if we're managing it correctly, should be appreciating in value. Our land should be appreciating the value if we manage it right. We manage it regeneratively, it should be getting better and better, and more and more, as compared to the neighbor's land. Our people, we don't own our people. But we own a little bit of their time. And so as they get better, our purchase of their time from them, from their salaries or wages or whatever we pay them, should be more valuable to us. So, again, I want those three things improving. So continuous improvement, let's just look at it. I like adaptive time control management. Or improving the land. I just think it's proven across a lot of producers that if we manage our grazing better, we get improvements. Characteristic of the grazing is a short graze period followed by a lengthy recovery period. And short and long are different depending on your situation. Short and long are a lot different here than they are where I've spent most of my time back in the West, where the rainfalls are much shorter. And a lot of it, the climate is much colder. Now, this is a place in Utah. High elevation, 1,600 maybe 6,300 feet. Photo was taken in June, and if you look at the sagebrush, you people don't even know what sagebrush is, but that's that great grouse plant in the background on the hillside. But amongst there, the grass is green. It's only green for about 45 days in the entire year. Right after snow melt, and in the rainy season, if we have one, is typically in May and early June. And the grass will be green. It's not going to be long before it turns yellow. Okay? The riparian area the cattle are standing in is kind of a sleepy area. And I could throw a hot wire fence around there and come back and graze it again in the fall. But it would be way too soon to graze the rest of it because there's not been adequate recovery. So I'd be hungry and find that I graze it again. Okay? So because the size of that riparian area is small, I don't fence it separately. This is solved at the time. So it's going to be a year plus before I graze there again. It might be recovered in a year, but I don't want to graze the same plants that are green now and wanting to grow right now. I don't want to graze them again while they're trying to grow. I want to give them a couple, 3 more years before I'm back there at the same time again. Hope that makes sense to you. That applies even here in terms of your recovery periods. So I think most of us live in recovery periods that are frankly too short, regardless of our performance. You will find that your soil will get better. The plant roots will go deeper if your recovery periods are just about as long as you can stand it. You know, still having grazing corn and everything else. Now this same ranch, but the recovery period is 32 to 45 days. Anybody want to guess the difference? Irrigation, there you go. Now this is an irrigated meadow. And I graze it probably at least twice and sometimes 3 times in the summer, depending on when I started, when I ended on any pasture. So I can be 2 or 3 times in the summertime, because basically we ran yearlings on this pasture. And we wanted them to get good performance, so we just let them kind of green the top and then move in the top and move. And that left a lot of good winter cow feed. We could graze with cows in the winter time. We didn't have to be quite so concerned about recovery on that because we irrigated again that spring. And out there, you know, sun's gonna shine. Top cows are more than a native feeds, rare exception. So you're gonna have sunshine, and on the irrigated land, you'll have water. So that made a difference. Same ranch, these 2 flows taken maybe 5 miles apart from each other. But a very different system. That's why I say good grazing characterized by short graze periods followed by lengthy recovery periods. Short and long being defined by your complex, where you are, what you're dealing with. Okay. And adaptive grazing will improve the land and the soil. And you just get better performance all the way around. 6 principles, soil health. I don't know how many of you have seen these or aware of them. I hope a lot of you have. There are 6 principles of soil health, and they're very important. And principles are truths. These apply any place in the world. Any place in the world. Your farm, my farm, it doesn't matter where you go. These principles apply. Now, our challenge is to develop practices that, can I say, obey those principles or align with those principles. And to the extent to which we make them align or obey, the more effective they are, and then they have a positive impact on ecosystem function. The ecosystem processes will all agree. And I like to start with thinking about a water cycle. The water cycle can improve that. I can produce more feed, and the mineral turnover can be greater. My solar panel, if you will, that's green reef area, starts earlier in the spring, lasts later in the fall and winter. And so I just have an effective solar panel, a more effective solar panel over a much greater portion of the year. And the way I manage grazing has such an effect on that. So all the things I'm high on, good grazing is one of the things I'm really high on. Yes, okay. This is summer, southeast Montana. We get the rain in the spring, snow in the winter usually. They don't get a lot of rain during summer. So we did yellow dot. This guy's a good grazer. Years ago, he started out about this goes south, Austin's New Forest. But it took about 30 acres to plant a cow-calf pair for a year. Calf being sometime in that year. But about 30 acres. He's now down to 16 dollars when this photo was taken. And he said, you know, I've spent about $50 an acre, and that seems like a lot of money for a ranch my size. I've spent about $50 an acre on this and water, saltwater development. Be able to do that. But he said, I at least doubled my carrying costs. He said, 30 acres versus 16. He says, that's not that big number, that is so doubling, but the cows are a little bigger, and I don't feed near as much hay. Very little hay now, but I used to feed. Says, so I've at least doubled my carrying capacity and the number of cattle that I'm able to run. He said, and where in Montana can you buy a ranch for $50 an acre? And he said, and I don't have to pay any property tax on the second ranch. You know, so think about that. Think of economic development. How powerful that is economically. And you know, he's just made a wonderful change on that ranch, and when you go there and look at it, I go there every once in a while, and I get to watch it improve. It's just amazing how it's better every time. Steve Freeman's, and I've talked to a few of you about Steve Freeman in Missouri. Notice not the leaf on the tree. These are first calf efforts just about ready to calve. And I left that place that day, and I started looking at neighboring farms, and every one of them looked like a pine. It was spring, so green was there. But none of them had any feed that looked at all like this. And I got to think, I wonder what these neighbors think when they think Steve's feeding. They probably wondered how much fertilizer you have to buy to make feed like that. And I can guarantee you, the only fertilizer this pasture gets is what comes out the back end of the cows. But it's evenly spaced, evenly spread. We move every day. Cattle in a very tight space, so the manure droppings are pretty evenly spaced. The urine spots are pretty evenly spaced. He started out requiring over 6 acres to run a cow-calf pair, I would say, that for a year. He's now at a 1.9. That's a really marked change. Think of the economic power of that. You know, it's pretty significant. Hasn't had to add equipment, hasn't had people, hasn't had to add any of those overheads. What we had to do is hold back more replacements, which kind of diminishes cash flow. When you do that, when you have enough cash flow to do it. hold back replacements. And, spend with more time when you work at it. You know, the Navy wing, the Navy ship, takes a little more time. Bringing preconditioning shots takes a little more time. But other than that, that's the only thing that changed. So, you know, you think you can only borrow that, you spend the money to buy more land. And then you can do that with it. Pretty impressive. Couple of statements are pretty important here. We all start to make changes in our management. And then we anticipate all these new things we've heard about, and then we've gone to neighbors who are already adopting the practices. And we see what's happening in there. And we anticipate that's what should happen at our place too. We've got to be careful that we observe what is actually happening. And not what we hope. We need to be honest with ourselves. Look at it accurately. Then the second statement there, because the parts of the system are interactive. Behavior of a particular part might not be the same. In polyculture, can I say it that way, as it would be in isolation. Most of the plant researchers do plant research, finding a role of one thing, different role of another thing, a different role of another thing, and so on. What this is suggesting is when you put them together in a polyculture, they not line up to form the same as they do in isolation. Because the interaction goes on in rooting systems and everything else. So we have to watch that one a little bit. But usually the interaction is almost always synergistic. Synergistic with loss, but it's not like Congress. You know, the best example in the world of negative strategy. Take people with pretty good intelligence, put them all together, and then that IQ goes down. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, observe what's happening, not what you wish happened.
Okay. I don't know how many of you have seen the film, it's becoming quite popular now. Root so big, you can see the film on me. Well, this is pretty much a curse place in the city. And they kind of featured and starred in this thing. And they are genuine, the city across the country, not moving, just really the goals. And you see there, interesting, you make introduction. And I have listened to the Freedoms up in Missouri. Because of the South, we'll have a Freedoms after that, I thought might get down there. So they've got a wonderful relationship and they buy votes very regularly for their urban Mississippi. But anyway, they were doing little neighbors with them. That warm city pasture, the south of the Vesky Belt, so no cool season stuff in the winter time to speak of. So they would lightly dish their warm season pastures, which meant they didn't have any stockpile to go the winter with. They would dish it lightly, not enough to kill warm season stuff, but set it back, and then they drill ryegrass and then fertilize the ryegrass a lot to get good green winter feed for their livestock. He said, well, we decided we were sick and tired of doing that. He said, we bought a no-till drill, and we operate that, and we buy seed, we buy some grass seed, we buy some legume seed, and we buy some form seed. My grass is a really like seed, and we did it in Grazing, they're not called small grain. But anyway, they started to do that, and he said, we do 2/3 of our costs are going. The remaining costs are the cost to operate the no-till drill and to buy the seed. And he said, now you know the rye seed, they're pretty self-seeding, because a lot of those seed. And the white clover, we don't have to ever buy white clover seed anymore, it's self-seeds. And he said the red clover started to self-seed quite a bit, and then there's a couple of southern clovers that I'm not aware of. But he said, very seldom we have to put up much clover seed anymore, it's self-seeding. But he said, we still grow a little bit every year. He said, the reduction of costs have been fantastic. And anyway, this is what they did. I think I did this picture, they see there, yeah. And
This is looking down into the pasture, you know, you can almost make your own salad out of that, it's not just something with the cattle, right? That's what this cattle had eaten at that time of year. Pretty impressive stuff. Now, this is mainly Wyoming, this is a ranch that I'm close to line with my nephew when this place. But anyway. It's difficult to build fences in the winter time, and he has more time in the winter time, and he trains horses. And he trains stop dogs. And so. Then he hasn't got this divided up as much as he wants, passions anyway, and so go out there and take his, well, he went there in the morning, he's placing his cattle. Using methods that he went to school to learn. And so he goes out in the morning and he takes his four-wheeler and saddle with him. A couple of dogs. First thing he does, jump on his four-wheeler, goes to where he's asked the cattle to graze, and that's where he has the tractor, if I can call it that, salt and mineral. Maybe a protein supplement. And he throws it along his four-wheeler and then takes it where he wants it to graze today when he moves it. He knows about the time they're going to water, so when he gets there, it's ready to go along the lawn water. He moves it where he wants it to graze the next day, the day that he's there. And then he goes back and grabs his saddle horse and his dogs, and he starts moving his cattle where he wants it to go. They're fairly good sized pasture, and you put them there, and they stay there. He's worried about places, and it's really stay. And he has to come back tomorrow, he can go back to the same place again. Go to water and come back to the same place. So you can rotate grazing in various Sunday ways, but sometimes you'll use one water location for a while and in the same pasture. Leapfrog and shut water off, and now we're going to turn water on at a different place, so we focus on grazing someplace else. And expansive operation, you can do that. I wouldn't advise that unless you're a really good animal placement, most of us aren't. But you know, just different ways, costs reasonable when you start moving into these kind of systems. It's just, oh, this example is one that I wanted to show on the right hand side of the fence. That is being grazed. That's the picture was being taken. It's an early spring graze, and the new green is coming in this old stockpile feed. And if I'm gonna, you know, I'm often asked, when do you turn out? I say, I didn't turn in. No, we're done grazing 365 days a year, and that's the case here. So there are going to be some places as we have to start in the in spring. Well, I want old stockpile to be there, so they graze on that while the grazing is new. And then next year, they're going to graze quite a bit later. I'm not going to be there in the time when the grading is coming. And that would be 3 years before the grading is starting again, maybe even longer than that. But so on the right hand side, you're seeing some old last year stockpile because they are eating the green by the time it gets up that good. And where you see the green on the left hand side of the fence, that was grazed late in the previous year. Previous season. And so it's going to be a long time when it's grazed again. And it's just getting started going. You can see it's going nicely, getting going, but that's kind of the story. And then this water tank, sometimes they can read the water faster than they come in. He can pick that up with a skid steer loader or one of those bale feeders that you can pick it up with either one and move it to a new place and make up, because of COVID, nothing worked that was on that ranch. They've got underground high density only pipe that's good stuff. And they can put water, you know, about any place on the ranch, so they just have to dig down to the pipe and put a saddle on it and bring water out of it and long period of no water. And so people leapfrog these tanks. He has 2 of them. So he turns on a new one when he wants the cattle to move to a different area in the pasture because they don't have all the fencing done yet. And they go as fast as they can. And then they want to have 3 divisions, what we call passion division, high density, smaller divisions than those, bigger against. And so when you leapfrog these tanks and get pretty good rotation grazing to occur, not as good as we want. And so it's at least a start. We've only been there a few years, so and do all the money or time wants either one. Okay, continuous improvement of livestock. Cow selected for this, and you guys think that's we don't have that here. No, we don't.
What you do have, what you probably have. 3 to 4 month period in every year, this is the toughest time of the year for your livestock, regardless of what kind of livestock. You can pick what that time is, and then select cattle that are adapted to that. And so, what that means is you got to color right cattle. The ones on this list are the ones that I want to color. Every one of them. They don't have names. They're not my friends, they're not my pets. So every one falls on this list is going to go. Now, I believe it's your definition of ugly. I would suggest that if you're just in the start of getting cattle that are adapted, you tell those cows what you want to do, not what you want them to look like. Tell them what you want them to do, and then you let them look however they need to look. You want them to do what you want them to do. There's an engine with 55 in the gun. There's much more accuracy. And once you get the kind of pitching environment they are, they're so much more efficient and less costly to them. Okay, opens and dries, hopefully know the difference in open. Like Craig said, she doesn't have a cap there, so dry. After the caddy season, she doesn't have one side, she's dry. There's no some differences. But anyway, figure it out. Now, I would suggest this 3-year-old first cat ever. She has a tag, all cows, great shape, she's old. If I can sell that cat, oh, that's a never had, even like she didn't know, or for a lot of reasons, she makes excellent lot of meat by the way. But I sell her, and sell her cat, that should be capped at their lifetime cost. And this. Now, if ever you pregnant, I don't care if she's a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old. The next spring, she doesn't have a calf outside and you carry her all the year. No calf market. She's the pre-owner, she's the one that costs you money. The other cows have to pay the per bill. So I really want to drive cows, because I think maybe. Why didn't they lose the first calf? What was it, embryonic slip? Was it, he just didn't make it careful when it was born? Did she let her credit forget it? Whatever else. And I don't want those cows. Dry cows more toxic to me than old. They're old, they're really bad. Okay. So anyway, I meant to talk about it, and I probably should just a second. I would be a little easier first. Half the body can come. First, she can't walk. You know, it's not good. She can't see, she got bad eyes. You know, if her other's driving the ground, she's probably ugly. Now, if the other is kind of bad, but still functioning, maybe she's not ugly yet. 3 or 4 years down the road, I've got a little more room to call some cows, and then have it. So just let how severely you're able to control based on the numbers you want to treat them. How many coming to your herd? Let that determine what's under. To me, if you're looking to get pregnant in a short period, pretty nice. Now, if that's a 2-year-old, first cat nursery, she gets pregnant again, I would accept that. You know, if you want to get them in legs, it's not going to make it. Okay.
I gotta stay on my best behavior, my wife might get rid of me, so we gotta get rid of the ugly ones.
How close you work?
Should get rid of them.
You gotta be careful, how you find that. Okay, let's select the right board. Be careful of this. I would suggest those of you who have worked in cattle adaptation, the time that you have adapted to your environment and your management have to be like in the team. Because the herd, your management is part of her environment. So adapted to the natural environment plus your management. And if you've been doing cow culling to achieve that, I would We wouldn't do that a lot of the buying bulls bring back the very problem you're going against. Because the seed stock producers aren't really into producing the bulls from the cows that fit your environment. Okay? That's a couple weeks across. So I think the selection of the seed stock breeder is even more important than the selection of the bulls. So I was just cow program going. If he has his favorite cow, she skips every year having a calf. But he likes that cow, so he's gonna raise that calf and he's always gonna try to sell it to you. You want that boat? You know, I don't think you do. And a lot of times about this time of year, we read in articles of popular press to tell us how we should take care of our bulls, so we get cows pregnant next summer. Also, I'm not the slide, I read whether read those articles. You have to remember that bull so you can cows pregnant next summer. Do you want to keep his daughters as your replacements? You know, bulls were the bottom of the totem pole, and how much they got. I mean, they never have to laugh, they never have to gestate, they got a pretty nice life. And, you know, where the cow, you put her to work. You expect her to thrive. You better expect that bull to thrive too. You know, they were the last thing we could supplemental feed to. Of all the age classes having the last. I mean, there's sometimes when you got so nice to very far north and a lot of ways west, and I haven't been this. So we had no choice, we had to get against the speed, but like I said, they were the last ones, they couldn't drive with that. Reading the sun was examining, eliminating, body conditions eliminated, and if we want that environment, that we want to have the environment, fitting in nicely, we're going to tell them, I want to touch this, God, want to help. Well, what's your size? I don't want to do big, I don't want to do too much milk. Milk. The conversion of grass to milk, ounce of calf is a forward conversion. Yes, they need milk to get started in life. They need milk to get up and going, to start to develop their own immune system. But most of our breeds are wanting to put way too much milk in the food, way too much milk in the cow or something. This is nobody makes these cows. And like I say, it's a poor conversion. Grass and milk, pounds of calf is a poor conversion. Yeah, it's nice to milk out these big calves, it's nice to milk the cows. But again, it's profit for acre, not profit per cow, not even production per cow. Let's be careful with that. You can just ask for too much milk. Remember, you want the cows to be further back. You always do this. Oh, this is what said. These cows, the yearly pregnancy rate, these 3-year-old heifers. They're just cows, being taken. They should have got closer to the doctor. But they never got that. Later, some of everything. I think Reader told me he got to take 3 times, and this is really full stroke too soon. 3 days, doesn't matter how much. And so they were counting about the time you see it here. Same efforts. That's faster than hadn't been raised the previous year. They returned there to calf, so they'd already what the stockpiles the freedom's coming off. But just nice efforts, but it never been bad. There were Burke Teichert, there were 240 of those heifers. There were 3 ovens, 3 calves. That's much of it. That's pretty good cost effectiveness. Now, try to bring around, try to do people. I mean, the cows, now let's try to do people. Just a few things, quick thoughts. The manager's job is to create an environment in which people want to excel. So give them something to be excited about. What kind of results do you have to? They can't be excited about it. But anyway, they need to be excited. But people, they want to excel, they want to get good at it. Then provide 3 things. Rules, training, freedom. Rules, don't expect people to work even yourself, they free your rules. They're just something you know and. That rules of working function right. It's easy to work. Training, if we expect people to manage at a level way up here. And all they've ever seen is management at a level down here, again, it's unfair about the training. Good managers are also good teachers. They train it well, it's hard, the high expectation. They learn how to be kind and firm at the same time, you have to. But being kind and firm at the same time, that's you get to develop. Oh, and freedom. As they get good at doing what you expect of them, keep them off on it, let them do it. If people are adequately paid in the first place, and then you add on comedy to that, that is more motivating than additional pay. And there's all kinds of experiences and research that will show that. Now that's kind of the big hit, if they're adequately paid in the first place. You know, if we can get better, you probably are going to pay a little bit, still, the additional amount, comedy pay is the bigger motivator, long-term motivator. Almost not additional pay for that. So that becomes important. And remember this leadership, I can't even find leadership. But it is best gauged by the voluntary response of those being led. You know, because I circled the word voluntary. If it's not voluntary, is it leadership? Not be coercion, not be censorship, I don't know what name you put on it, but it's not leadership, it's not voluntary. Leadership is not about being in charge. It is about taking care of those in your charge. Leadership. You have to remember, most people don't quit their jobs, they quit their bosses. You know, I don't think very many of us are very good bosses. That's why I say we can be kind for that's really important. Because recognize periodically are you need to learn how to do that kindly. And you need to be able to let people go. You want people to become self-supervising as fast as they can. So you don't have to. Measure determines profits. If you can fix this, fix it in your mind. Sometimes the cost is simply having selected a week weight or a yearly weight or whatever, and the cow size got bigger. And as the cow size got bigger, the fertility rates of those cows got less, smaller, and couldn't run as many up on the same resource. So there's that cost. Sometimes we can win weight by feeding or doing other things, but there's always a cost that comes with adding to weaning weight. Now, I'm not going to say that sometimes that cost isn't justified. It might be. Sometimes it could be justified. But it always comes with a cost. And in my experience, says that it never is a high cost benefit ratio, benefit ratio in relationship to the cost. So I don't include weaning weight on that list. Enterprise mission choices, that's extremely important. And I'm not sure that in a lot of places sheep and goats or even birds are more lucrative than cattle. Now, I don't cattle, I need cattle. And so let's go back to just cattle. In cattle, cow calf is probably the least profitable of all the cattle enterprises. Stocker operations are more profitable acres than cow calf operations. There's buying and stocking grazing. Terminal breeding operations are more profitable than the terminal. The company differentiated the terminal are where you buy and replace the cows And I shudder to think that enjoy by replacing heifers, but by replacing cows, not heifers. And then sell every cow that's born. Compare that to maternal where you raise your own replacement heifers. And there's two major reasons that maternal is more profitable, even if they're just cows. We can say, I can't buy enough cows, but if they're pregnant, you know, they're probably good enough. Just cows. Then you breed into a high growth, high carcass bull and sell every calf. You wouldn't want to breed the calves. Or you can have these yearlings sometimes when they sell them. Somebody wants to know, breed the calves. But the reason they're not as profitable, the maternal isn't as profitable as the maternal is because you got the yearling there that doesn't put the coupon for you. That feed it all year, there's no calf in yourself. So that becomes a problem. And then you say, well, yeah, she's appreciating value while I own her. Well, yes, she is. But you don't think about it as that appreciation curve. You let her start to appreciate and you sell her as an old cow. And so you still lost the value of that appreciation curve. And we'll talk about that a little later in the day, about how that happens. But I was privileged to manage for the same company ranches that were maternal breeders and ranches that were maternal breeders. And the maternal breeders never really beat the maternal breeders. But at times they were as good as. And to be as good as, they had to have very low cost of development programs where you could sell open yearlings at a profit, a nice profit, I would say. And so the heifers that weren't internationally were developed at low cost. And then you sell bred cows at a very nice premium. If you can't combine those two things, there's no way the maternal will compete with the maternal. So a lot of people don't understand that in economics, but I've done most things using times. That's the way it pans out in time. Yes.
In that case, if you compare both operations, and you say, well, this was profitable or this, you base the total profits at the end of the year, or you decided by individual animals?
No, not the individual animals, not very anything to do with it.
It's the system. It's the system. One system is just more profitable than the other system.
But based on, at the end of the year, you have more than six, than, so,
Way more receipts than costs. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, I have any questions, I'm sure I have. Yeah, I know, the individual animal doesn't make much difference, it's a system there. You can read that cow, they have a calf, it's, you know, it's a terminal calf, and she's a moderate sized cow, and you bring her to have a calf out of the growth rate Angus, like carcass, or growth rate Charlotte, like carcass, it's, will become very much calves, and basically the same cost as if they've done compared to another kind of bull. If you're selling every cow has a possibility of having a calf. Then you get overall and lose a few. And then naturally, if you want to get pregnant again, you have to replace the opens. But again, it's cheaper to buy and replace cows, not heifers. I don't believe in buying heifers. Let this thing in your mind, and it's absolutely true. The probability of a 7-year-old cow that's pregnant now has a significantly higher probability of having 4 more calves than a 2-year-old that's pregnant now having 4 more calves if you sell all the opens and dries. That 2-year-old helps you as well like together. Let's use it over. Changes needs, she's still trying to grow, she's losing calf. And you want to get pregnant, a lot of them do that, especially if you're translocating in place. When you go managing the low cost environment, you use all of its food. Not for the 7-year-old cow, she's driving through, you just keep on having calves. You know, so that's just one of the things we think of. So in your enterprise selection, what do you do? I do cows and calves because I love cows and calves, but I've learned how to make cow calf production profitable.
But I sell a lot of great cows and I can tell 10% lower than cost. And that's what makes it profitable. I love to make those big cows, but people who buy those cows from us, they love to buy those cows and breed them to come in woolens to sell all the cows, because that works really nicely for them when they can buy all the cows they need from a single source. And it manages someone like David, who makes the wood cover. And then they can sell all these calves. Okay, overheads, we talked about overheads, more you readers at the better. Stocking rate. There's two things that affect stocking rate. One is the size and milking ability of the cow. If they're smaller, give less milk, you can run more of them. We went through a little example of that. Soil health and grazing management. That's the big hit. Seriously, is the big hit. Stocking rate. Now, you can't let stocking rate outrun carrying capacity. Does that thought register with all of you? Do I need to start you coming on? You got a question back there? Okay. Carrying capacity is the supply. How much feed are you producing? Stocking rate is the demand for that supply. You want the stocking rate to be up there close to the carrying capacity, but never ever outrun it. Because if the stocking rate is ever greater than the carrying capacity, you will have severe grazing, and that just does what we're trying to do with good grazing management. So there's no help from good grazing and pasture management. Fed feed versus graze feed. The more days in the year that I can graze now, the less days I have to put feed in front of them, the more profitable I'm going to be. I can say this without any doubt. Every time you put a machine between the mouth of the cow and the feed source, it's just costing them. Now, that doesn't mean you should never do it, but you better do it really good reasons. It's staring that you can possibly do it. The more days you can graze, and the less days you can feed, the better. Now, some days when you're grazing, feed quality won't be that great. You'll have to supplement a little protein or something. But that's a very low cost exchange, you know, it's some sounds over and break the lunch. So really, if I heard you, most people pushing. Okay, calving season. It's easy to calve too early. It's probably very easy to calve too late. I can't tell you what your calving season should be, but there's a time of the year when the cow is best fed to start nursing a newborn calf. The nutrient requirement for a cow nearly doubles, not quite, but nearly doubles the moment the calf is born. Make me know what that calf's like. I want that cow to look very good when the calf is first born. And I hope the cow tails off in milk production later in the year. And if the calf is the right season, they will naturally do that because the beef is not there to say I milk production. Later in the year. So what does your feed production cycle look like, along with feed quality cycle look like, and that should definitely go to the calf. Calving then, I wouldn't do it. My machine stock me, I wouldn't do it. Just wouldn't calving because I want to cost down. And I don't want to have calving barns and calving sheds and calving facilities. I calved for years, and then finally I went, hey, it's a cow's job to calve, not mine. And
Yeah.
In my learning process, I did a lot of calving. Calving in the winter time was one. Now, where I came from in Wyoming, 6,200 feet elevation. Snow was still on. My birthday was April 3rd. And so that was a good demarcation time. There were a few years when the ground was bare on April 3rd. Most years it was still snow. Then it was snowing. The kids started coming the previous November and the ground never bared up in that whole period of time. We cows way more months a year than we should have been to. My brother's finally why he's having a lot of the summer shoppers on the same ranch. And feel quite nice. Okay. Realize your fertility. The reason I'm putting the word realize is because how much of that fertility can we get to sell? The ideal, well, maybe it's not the ideal, but perfect would be that every cow conceives
every cow can see because it's a live calf. And every live calf survives until it reaches a sale point. Well, we're never gonna get that. But, you know, the higher the fertility, greater the fertility, the more you have to sell. So fertility is really the driver. The key drivers of profitability, which is good for fertility. Now, why is it that use for optimum production? Well, meat sales would study a lot more than you should ever buy. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't buy something. Probably should, in most operations. Salt and maybe a good mineral. In some cases, protein supplement, depending on what you're grazing, how much we have these protein supplements fairly often. But I say that if I'm going to spend $1 on the input, I want to be able to project at least $2 return. Well, people will say, well, gosh, you get $1.10 back. That's a problem, isn't it? I say, yes, if we predicted correctly. But what if I don't get as much back as I thought we were going to get because we predicted erroneously? And then what if the cost of the input doubles or triples? And my cows and I were addicted to that input. And because the price went way up, I've got to take it away from them. The fashion production is going to be not very good for a few years. So you got to readapt to the new scenario. So I want to less estimate with the best estimation I can do that I'm going to get at least twice back what I paid for an additional. And I think that's a pretty safe way to look at it. And then marketing. We talked about marketing. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. Okay. These three terms. This is slightly longer. Adapted cows, calving season, grazing management. Those three work together. They don't work independent of each other. What you do in one's going to affect what you do in the other, and vice versa. There's a lot of interconnectedness between those three things. And they, in concert, have profound effects on soil health, carrying capacity, bed feed versus graze feed, overheads, which includes labor facilities, and herd fertility. And those, now lower this, they drive profitability in a big, big way. And when my initial presumptive slide says, yes, mentioned to be profitable if you go out, this is a logical point. This is what you really need to know and understand. What am I doing in my daily efforts? Why am I out there on the farm? It's what I'm doing going to make a change on those. Is my cows becoming more adapted? Is my calving season spot on to where it should be? Is my grazing management good? Am I helping the soil get better and better? You know, ask those questions. If you're doing that, you're going to be improving profit. And then from that, we say, okay, reduce overheads, achieve excellent herd fertility, market well, and then improve three key ratios. Again, this is another slide you want to get in your memory. Acres per cow, we talked about that a couple of occasions. You want that number to get smaller. Acres per cow. Cows for full-time equivalent of labor. Since I run about 800 cows for full-time equivalent, maybe a bunch of yearlings in addition. If you've only got 200 cows or 100 cows, you could say, to be competitive with that guy, I need to do that in about a quarter of my time. And I do that, or maybe even less than a quarter. And I do that, because I've got my day job. How much time have I got to devote to really make that happen? So cows per head, if you're only a quarter of enough to eat, no problem there. Just make sure they keep the ratio. I used to joke with tell people, hey, if I'm well organized, well managed on my ranch, I can just do it under the cows' needs. Because I have summer off and I have Saturday. The church on Sunday, on Saturday, I can and the evenings and do it. Probably couldn't be a coach, so you're not. Okay. And then effective versus grace feed. Those three ratios are the big drivers. So you reduce overheads,
Achieve excellent cow herd fertility, market value, and improve those breed ratios. That's, if you can understand everything behind that slide. That's really knowing how. to keep going. We already had breakdowns, and you'll get those. These three charts, you've seen them before, and etch those in your memory. Those charts all pipe to each other. They're interconnected. And you can see and sense that they can become part of your core, they can become part of your intuition. When you're thinking about managerial problems for your farm or ranch, you're making the things on those three charts. Okay. And war on costs. Overheads, they're there, and then gross margin, and that's total revenue minus direct costs. Let's become efficient and effective. Remember, Stephen Covey says, you can be as efficient as you want to be until I was leaning against the long wall. It'd be really good to be efficient. We need to make sure our lives are leaning against the right wall. Change the catalyst to be more closely in sync with nature. I wish I was better in your local situations here and I could make it help you. Out west where I've been, I've set a number of ranches to be close to April 20th to start calving. One young rancher that worked for me, and then he left because I hired him back just as I was retired. That's the ranch that I had just bought to purchase. And set him up with April 20th. I went back to visit him a number of years later. I visited him I got talking about his calves, and I said, "When you calve, you start with April 20th." I said, "It's right." He said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "When I start calving, I always think we're calving too early." Because he said, "There's still some threat of storm after the 20th of April." And he said, "But then when I turned the bolts in, and I looked at the deteriorating grass quality, that summer's getting into it, the grass is starting to deteriorate. I think I'm calving too late." And I said, "Well, if you got that argument with yourself, maybe you're about right." He said, "Well, that's kind of what conclusion I've got to reach. Maybe our offsetting risks are about where they need to be. I'm sort of in the middle of the creek." But we never successfully counting them. You see what I'm saying? There's some places where too early because nutrition is quite good enough for a cow to lactate and take good care of a calf. There's other times of the year behind that optimum season when the nutrition would lack a little in terms of getting the cows rebred. You guys need your circumstances will all be different, so you got to take those into consideration and say, when should I calve? But in a well-selected calving season, it should be no problem to get pregnancy rates well into the 90s. If the cows are adapted to that environment. If you're not getting, you're going to say, "Are my cows adapted?" You know, what's going on? If the calving season is right and the cows are adapted, you should get good reproduction. Okay, some of this I don't need to say again. This is a simple example. Those cows are expected to eat that dry grass you see there, it's slough grass. 3 times a week, they will go out and feed some alfalfa hay as a protein supplement. Not near a protein. Maybe the equivalent of 3 to 5 pounds of alfalfa per head per day. So they multiply 3 times 7, and 21 pounds in a week. I'm going 3 times, so I give you 7 pounds each time I go. Skip one day, skip 2, and I really like that. Cows don't calendar that very well, and so they won't come until they hear the feed outfit coming. So if you do that, don't go out there with the feed outfit on the day you don't intend to feed them, because they're all going to waste energy trying to come find it. But otherwise, they wait till they hear the sound of the feed outfit that they recognize after a while. And then they start to come. These guys were in trouble with me when they gave me this picture. Does anybody know why they were in trouble with me? How much alfalfa are those cows right next to that hay rack when you get compared to those cows that are still out there a long way off? You want the most of them to be really close to the feed outfit, and then they get really close. There can still be a little tail end out there because you will drive into those. And you want to run that thing as fast as you dare without bouncing yourself off of it to get every cow's head in the hay as quickly as possible.
Once every cow's head is in the hay, then you can take a little time to put the rest of it out. But you want every cow to be able to be eat with some hay as quickly as you can possibly get. He has a question.
If you're skipping days, what is the greatest length of time that you can skip without upsetting human?
The research for protein supplementation is different for energy supplementation. If you're feeding calves an energy source every day, you need to eat every day. And if you're feeding for protein supplementation, the research will show you to go as seldom as once a week. I prefer to go at least twice a week. But oftentimes, it's how much feed can I put on there, and if I can feed them on whatever outfit I'm using to feed, if I can put enough feed on, go twice a week, all over twice a week, if I can't almost do it. And remember, you're skipping more days one time than the other, but I don't worry about equating that out, I just do the same amount every time. So that's what they end up eating, a little bit of hay and a lot of that will dry out and soon dries. And it doesn't test very good, but the protein helps them digest it and they can eat quite a bit of it. And you know, the body condition of those cows is not all that bad. Minimal development of replacement heifers, either yearly heifers or weak heifer calves, so they become yearlings. They're on the cake circle. You know what I mean by cake? It's a pellet cube. Okay. Mostly dry distilled grains in the cube. But we fed maybe 3 pounds a day for the calves in the winter time. I'm expecting to raise the rest of their nutrition like grass. Now, if it gets really cold, when we get some real, this is in western Nebraska, when you get some real bad winds there, but they can chill back way, way down. They're a little scary cold when it does that. And when we get some snow, deep snow, then we'll get some hay for those calves. And they're the first things we feed. Where I said the bulls were the last, the heifer calves is what we'll help the quickest. You know, with feed cells. Okay, with good grazing, you can get larger herds, fewer herds. The fewer herds you have, the easier it is to manage. A lot of people want this class cattle here, this class cattle there. I like the few herds. It's a lot easier to tend 800 cows in one herd than it is to tend 800 cows in 8 herds. A lot easier. You know, if the ranch grows in cow numbers, you oftentimes don't have to add employees simply because you don't increase the number of herds. You just keep them saving, but each herd get bigger. And that's a really important idea for labor efficiency. You don't want to expect people to work harder. You just want to organize better and work smarter. And there shouldn't be any more physical expectation because they're already working hard. Anyway, there's a bunch of reasons there. We're there again. Okay, give us some marketing. Production marketing capital together. See this chart, color up cow. Select the right one. The process that we're reducing overheads. And cutting inputs. And so after you cut inputs, you make it a little tougher for the cow. Some of them are going to flunk. So you cull the right cow when they flunk. But then what do you start to do? Well, I want the short exposure for lots of heifers. I only remove heifer calves that are just, let's see, junk. And we all have some, young and many do not. We have some calves that just fine to build. They just pull. You pull those off, and it's, you know, I've been doing it so long, and we reduce the mother, we always remove the mothers of those cows, and we don't have very many. 5% will easily catch it. And I think they mostly don't. That would happen. You take off just the poorest ones. The rest of them are exposed to wolves for a very short period of time. I started out in 30 days, but I moved it closer to 24. And breeded just for that period of time, and I was all sitting there. The pregnant ones make good cows, the older ones make real good feeders. The feeders the bottom like it, they come out next to looking well. And so, but that gives them a good start. Think of how much easier it is to read this feeder when she read that in that short season as a year. And then cows, I say, okay, I want to The long breeder season, the short cattle season, the same, 100 that. And I always let the bulls and the cows go right. I mean, took them out of the heavens. But let them the bulls go right. And on the day we break check, we tell guys, now it's counting any for the time, and it's in western Nebraska. Let them. And we break check sometime, and late October, or whatever, we said, the guys are in the break checking. If you think the pregnancy occurred. I mean, no, if you think the cow is going to calve after the 1st of September. She's open, regardless of what you feel or see. Regardless of what you feel or see, that cow's open. If you think it's after the 1st of September. So we would call those open, and they were open on our books. That's what our program was designed. Okay. We had corn stalk arrangement on the Platte River in Nebraska. We need to get out to the corn stalk with farmers, and we Boltzmann. And you know, we didn't put those with money, we put those back on the pit on the Thanksgiving time. In the meantime, we go about December 15th and crack check those cows. Because remember, those were still with the cows, and they were full miles, and they knew there was some white calves in there. But there were late calves they didn't know were there because most of them right at the time they pregnant and they can't pregnant that much. So we both met them on Thanksgiving. On about December 15th, we go pregnant was cows and anything was pregnant. Now they got pregnant pre Thanksgiving and December, they couldn't detect those either. So anything that pregnant, it was going to be a June or July cow. We found a guy that was from Lacosia, and he would buy every one of those cows that was pregnant. When we were removing the corn stalks, we never had to take them back home, they just went directly in this place, we came off the corn stalks. We removed, then we put the bulls in, the bulls stayed there about 45 days, and that was closer to the market for the bulls. We were all what we call black steel bulls, we weren't really using another season. And so we would remove them after about 45 days, when about the end of March, corn stalk farm, when he wanted cows off the corn stalks because he wanted to be at the farm, start farming in April. When we take those, we purchase those cows again, and then they be pregnant a fall calf in September. And we had a sister ranch in Oklahoma who would buy every one of those. And they liked it. I'm amazed, they figure rates on like we did in Nebraska, but they would be in the mid to high 80s, never in the 90s. But that was even though there was a little bit of fallout, that was a cheap source of replacement cows compared to raising your own replacement heifers in that particular operation. So as a result of doing those things, we sold very few open cows. Almost all the cows eventually got pregnant in that year. And then we go into the next year and we calf through April, and then we take out every cow that had a calf and combine them with several breeds of one to breed from a calf, because the bred calving made this year, the bred calving made next year. And when we bred checked that group in the fall, we had a buyer. Again, one was on ranch, and even that many replacement cows would come and buy those cows off the end of the break sheet. And so they would leave either that night or the next morning. And why would stay brand law, why they had to be brand inspected. So the brand inspector, and we were branding them as the guys doing the break check and called it pregnant, then they branded right then. The brand inspector would come and he just made sure that our brand was there. He didn't want us, when the new owners ran on the neighbor's cow, they had to be ours. So, and they take them away, and so pretty nice deal. Some of those cows had a nice premium. So low heifer development costs, and I'm selling a lot of red cows at a nice premium price. But that makes it competitive with the outlet of struggle costs, and we're just buying cows and selling all the cows. If I were a small operator, if I could find anybody who could produce the cows for me, I would find the cows. Yes.
You mentioned about the other ranch in Oklahoma, you call it a sister ranch.
It was owned by the same company.
Okay, so if you already have those relationships, how would you develop the market for those?
Okay, the first two buyers I talked about, the one that bought the June and July tags and then the May tags. They were not related to the shape or form. I knew them because grazing schools that we've gone to. I knew that they were matching quite a bit the way we were. And I knew they were buying replacements. They were going to auction yards and buying some here, some there. To me, that offers some real life security issues for them. And so I said, you know, what if, you know, if your cows from us didn't have to go to auctions and mix cows from several different locations and worry about mixing the diseases they might have. You know, if you're about what diseases and our diseases now. And, we don't want to say we're totally clean, but that, they said, no, that'd be wonderful. So we got those two out of this, but they came back year after year. Once you get them started, if the cows you sell are decent cows, they're gonna come back. You know, we tried to make decent cows, we raise our own bulls. And, most of the bulls, well, EAI can raise some of those bulls, but a lot of them raise their own bulls of our own nation too. And, so our cattle benefit the environment, and these ranches, when we were selling the cows to, they managed similar to us, and they were in environments not so different. So the cows work for them, that's why they get coming back. You know, you gotta be a little bit of a salesman. I don't regard myself as a salesman, but I just happen to know these people, so it's kind of fool's luck, I guess, in the fun. Well, right, it's found two very good buyers. You know, we didn't try this top of the market, we wanted to get fair price, we really price. And I once asked one of them, I said, what do you think you can pay for this cows? This had to pay $1,000. I don't think I'm gonna get that. And I said, okay, that's fair. Let's see, make sure we got a fair price, so we can get a price. So the results of doing this is appropriate cow size. The cow size will come to where Mother Nature wants it to be when we do things that don't. It was just happen. You don't have to say, I need all of 1,100-pound cow. Whatever that cow ends up weighing is what you want her to be. If she's doing everything else you're asking her to do. And the stocking rate will have profitable open heifers. Your yearly heifers that are open should always sell for a profit. We track the lifetime costs, so we knew what they cost. That won't. Less fed feed, more grazing. Drought planning flexibility. We ran all of our yearly steers open as yearlings, except for the dry years, so we sell them. We didn't run them over yearlings. There's sometimes you even have to dictate to the heifers. Only once or twice, we already. So we sell steers and then we go to our way at ground calorie, we go down calorie, outside of it.
What years were they?
The first one was in, the first pasture I think right now.
No, I'm talking about how old was that cow, grandma herd?
Oh, they were from 9 years up to whatever. There were some cows that are 17 years old. I didn't ever mount the cow. I couldn't stay in the condition to tell it. I could go through that with my son, but we won't read that in the question and answer. Why we discuss that. How I doing? How to call them that now. Okay, more opportunities for red cow sales, and that this was a very nice thing for us. Our open heifers were always profitable, and we sold a lot of red cows for a period of price. And that was really big profits. Okay, we've seen this all before. This is just few random thoughts. I think what we'll do is lunch ready. Why don't we break for lunch? Then we'll come back and have question and answer time. Well, you're asking questions. I'll just move to a few slides here that I won't read, we won't discuss it if you want to, but are just random thoughts and ideas of over the years that help me be a better manager. And they come from a lot of sources, a lot of different people. And I'm just one of those fortunate guys that I don't believe a lot of coincidence, but people in my path that have been helpful and ideas, and I can't claim much authorship for the original ideas. I can claim some authorship for the way I've combined ideas. Combined ideas, put them together in a profitable system.
And that's what I'm trying to strike from today. You'll hear a lot of the ideas that I talk about. How to combine, how to make them work together. The charts I've sort of highlighted for you